Hallo ihr Lieben, heute sprechen wir über Verben. Hi everyone, today we're going to talk about verbs and specifically we're going to talk about how to conjugate a verb. So in order to know how to do that in German, the first thing you need to know is what it actually means to conjugate a verb. So I'm going to define that for you. And to conjugate a verb just means giving it different forms. Okay, and those forms are based on different things, so things like tense or mood or person. In German, we conjugate for lots of different things. In English, we don't conjugate the same exact way. But what we're going to focus on right now is having it match the subject of a sentence. And the subject of a sentence is the actor or the person doing something. I should say the person or thing. So we're going to have it match. We're going to focus on present tense. So in English, you're going to have, for example, he does his homework. Right? So he does his homework. So my verb is does, and I made that match he. Where I conjugated for he, because he's the one that is doing something. So that's my subject right now. If I change out that subject and I make that I, right, I'm going to change this verb in English. So it's going to be I do, let's just keep the rest the same, his homework. Hopefully not. So I had to change my verb. So in English, we don't conjugate differently for all the different people, but in German we do. So you have to pay attention to your subjects or your subject pronouns. So as a reminder, the subject pronouns are going to be he, she, it, I, you, all those pronouns. So I'm going to write them down for you. We've got ich, du, er, sie, es, and then wir, ihr, sie. I'm going to put a z on the bottom. So those are all of our subject pronouns. And of course we have on the one hand, on the one side, this is our singular side. This is our plural side. And then we've got first person, second person, third person. So in English you would have I, you, he, she, and it, we, I'm going to make this a y'all, just to be clear, so that's your you plural, and they. This last one we don't have in English, but this is the you formal. So those are the subject pronouns. So when you have any verb, you should always look for those first. Those are going to be the easier ones, so look for those first. So once you have those pronouns, I'm going to give you an example sentence. We can have something like er macht seine Hausaufgaben. So that's the same sentence that we had in English. He does his homework, or in German, he makes his homework. So the verb is in second place. We conjugated for er. Now the infinitive, or the unchanged form of that verb in German is machen. Machen. In order to make it match the subject, or in order to conjugate that, what we did is we took the stem, that's this part, and we dropped the ending. So we are going to drop the ending, and then we're adding the conjugation, which is a new ending. So we're adding the conjugation. Now this is a verb that is called a weak verb or a regular verb, and those are the ones we're focusing on right now. And those always follow the same pattern of endings. They always follow the exact same pattern. And here's the pattern. So for ich, we add an I. For du, we add an ST. For sie and es, we add a T. For wir, we add an EN. For ihr, we add a T. And for both of those other Z's, Z and Z, we add an EN. So this formal U, I moved over to the side just for conjugation. You will usually see it on the same line. So those are the endings. So I had said, let me go down, macht seine Hausaufgaben. So I'm going to write, ich mach, and then seine Hausaufgaben. And I need to add an ending. So I'm still missing my ending. So because we have the subject right here, we can look at this little chart and just figure out that it's an ich. So I've got my I. So the conjugation in this case becomes ich mache meine Hausaufgaben. Seine Hausaufgaben. There are a couple of additional rules you need to remember. Just for spelling rules, there's a couple of things. When you have the du and the sie es conjugation, you sometimes have to add an extra letter. Actually, also the ear. When you have these conjugations, so that was your st or your t's, if you have a verb in which the stem ends in the following combinations. So either a T or a D, a CHN, or a GN. If the stem of that verb ends in any of these, you have to add an E and then conjugate. So first we add an E, then we conjugate. So for example, when we have a verb like finden. Finden is a cognate. It means to find. If I say find seine Hausaufgaben, so he finds his homework. I know from our little chart before that I needed to add a T. So I want a T for this. But this ends in a T, so before I can add my T, I have to add an E, and then I add a T. So now this is actually something you can say, and it says findet. If you just had the T, it would just be find, and you couldn't even tell that there was any sort of conjugation on it. So always make sure you look at the end of your stem. Again, this is the stem, this is the ending that you were dropping. Look at the end. And make sure that if you have one of these combinations or letters, you add that extra E. Last but not least, one of the things that I always say in class is established 1010, established in the year 1010. And that's just a quick way to remember those endings. So if you separate them out and you put the pronouns in the correct order, you end up with the correct pronoun ending or verb ending. So ich, I, du, st, sie, st. So just establish 1010, write it down, and then put your pronouns in the correct order. First person, second person, third, first, second, third. You've got all your endings. I hope that helps.